Hi my lovelies, welcome back to my channel, and for everybody who is new, I'm Leorah and I'm so glad you found me. So welcome to today's video, which is gonna be the next installment in my infertility series. So if you have a problem with that topic, if that sets you off, if that upsets you, then please come back for my next video, and don't watch this because I don't want anyone to be upset. But I know that there are a lot of people who really benefit from this infertility series, from my story. So that's why I'm sitting here, even though it is really hard for me personally to let me go back there to that place. But I'm filming this because I know that there are a lot of people who need this, you know, so that's that. And the series today, or the installment today, is actually part 5.5, and you probably saw that on the thumbnail and you probably wondered why, because really we did part 5 already and we're due for part 6. And why part 5.5? And you know what, after I had stopped filming last time, actually, you know what, it was already edited and uploaded it and released. And then at some point I thought, wow, how could I forget? You know, last time we spoke about the conception and birth and all in pregnancy, of course, with Golan and Micellar, my second set of twins. And I told you, you know, they were born, that was the birth weight, I guess something like this, that Micellar was much smaller and she always stayed a little bit smaller, but she was a fighter and all of these things. And the main thing that was really traumatizing in this whole setting of the birth, I totally forgot is maybe not the right word, but I think you know how it's sometimes you protect yourself by not thinking about something anymore when something was very traumatic. And I had not a lot, but some of those kinds of occurrences in my life where it took years for me to let myself go back there because it was so scary. By the way, there is someone outside vacuuming a car, so in case you hear that, that's so annoying because anyway, life goes on. Okay, so let's go back to the story. So the birth. The day of the birth was actually super traumatizing and I almost died. That was the day when I was something like 5 minutes from dying, and I did not tell you that last time not because I didn't want to, just because it sort of slipped through the cracks because I did not let myself go there again, you know? So, but I want to, because all of this is also therapy for me to deal with everything that has happened and why things are happening in my life the way they do and all of these things, to make some sense in all of that. So that's why I am sort of doing this extra part of this series. Anyway, so let's get to the story. I had just given birth. It was a C-section. Micellar came out first. She weighed 2,020 grams. And then Golan came out 1 minute later and he was 2,800 grams. They took them away. They showed them to me very briefly. I think they only gave Golan, they held him up to my face so I could kiss him and we could take a picture. I'm not sure if they gave me or if they held Micellar to me because she was so small. They just whisked them away to the baby ward or whatever it's called. So anyway, I had not been super big during this pregnancy because I was already in my weight loss journey, and I had really watched my weight in a normal manner. I was not dieting obviously during my pregnancy, but I was also not gaining weight like crazy. I, during this twin pregnancy, had gained only 12 kilos, which is very good, and it is a good amount to gain when you are already overweight. I was still overweight. I was weighing at that point still over 100 kilos. So when you are already overweight, you do not need to gain an insane amount of kilos during a pregnancy. So I was very aware of that. I also wanted to, after the pregnancy, continue my weight loss journey, which I did. And so I was watching myself. I was watching my blood sugar and everything. As I told you last time, I had developed gestational diabetes, so I could control that with my diet. I was checking my blood sugar 5 times a day. I did whatever I could to ensure that my babies will have the best start possible. What comes to me, you know, to give. Anyway, so they came out and everything looked fine. And my husband also, he went then after a few minutes, he then went to go to the baby place where they had put our babies to be with them, to take pictures, to see how they've been bathed and whatever they do there, because I'm always in recovery, so I never know what they do there. Anyway, so that's what we did. So the first probably 1.5 hours I spent alone. They sewed me up, like they closed me up, and then they took me to the recovery room. So there everything looked pretty normal. My blood pressure was okay. I was really exhausted, but that's to be expected, right? So anyway, they came probably every 10-15 minutes to check if the bleeding is okay, if everything looks fine, all the vital signs, the pulse, the blood pressure. They took the temperature and everything. So everything looked fine. After a little bit, you know how they always, I don't know if you had the experience to give birth or to had a C-section. So when you're in recovery, they push on your belly in order to see if there is you know, blood coming out, because it's not a natural birth. The body has to sort of be pushed into expelling the rest that is still in your uterus. So you also get, of course, IV with certain drugs in it, sort of that start contracting your uterus, because all of these things don't happen naturally when you have a C-section. So your body needs help. So I had all this, and then they of course have to always check, and then they press on the belly, and then they see if the uterus is contracting. So my uterus was not contracting. And I don't know if they immediately recognized this, and I, of course, I was in total unawareness. I just wanted to rest, and I was really bothered by the fact that they constantly came, like every 10-15 minutes, to check me, because really I could not sleep. I could not rest. And then also every, I think 3-4 minutes, the blood pressure gauge around my upper arm started to pump, you know. So you really cannot rest when you're in a hospital. That's just horrible. But I know that it has to be done, and it saved my life. So anyway, at some point the nurse came again to check me, and then she pushed on my tummy, and then suddenly a big gush of blood came out. And I didn't know that. I just saw that her face froze while she was looking down, you know, where the blood comes out. And she was like, oh my God. And then she ran out. And I was like, huh? What happened? I didn't feel anything, you know? And then she got a doctor to look at this. And then they pressed again. And then the next big gush of blood came out. And when they were pressing on my tummy that second time, I fainted. And I had no idea what was going on. And then at some point I came back like a tiny little bit. I was very drowsy, and I just saw that there was the curtains were drawn around my bed in the recovery room, and people were running, and they were probably like 6 people around me, and they were trying to get an IV into my legs and into my second arm, and there were IV drips everywhere, and they were calling for blood transfusion, and I was like, what is going on? I had no idea. And then I just slipped into this tunnel, and then I was gone, you know? So my husband's side of this whole story is, he came back to the recovery room after having been with our babies, seeing how they have been measured and weighed and all of these things, taking pictures. And he was just standing outside of the recovery room doing a few phone calls to tell everybody that we had been delivered of a boy and a girl, that everything is fine, all of these beautiful things. And then he saw suddenly, while he was like looking from the main entrance of the recovery room into the recovery room, and he saw where my bed was. He knew where I was lying, and he saw that suddenly the curtains were drawn and people were running like crazy, and he was like, what's going on? And he tried to get in and wanted to see what's going on, and they didn't let him. They say, stay out there. So he had no idea what was going on, and I was unconscious. I didn't know. So after I don't know how much time passed, honestly. It cannot be super much, but after some time had passed, I came back a little bit, and the doctor who had operated on me was standing next to my head, this side. I remember it like yesterday. And he said, Mrs. Goldberg, it looks like we have to remove your uterus. And I knew that I couldn't talk. I was too weak and I was too drowsy and I couldn't. But I just remember that there was a tear like falling down, just one tear falling out of my eyes, and then I closed my eyes again, and then I was gone again. And because that was such a horrible verdict, you know. Back then I wasn't sure if I'm not gonna have more kids. I probably would have wanted to, but and then this verdict of we're gonna have to remove your uterus because your uterus is not contracting. You keep bleeding like crazy from this huge wound that is your uterus. If you imagine it, this, if your uterus doesn't contract and the blood vessels that are exposed after the placenta has detached, what a big area of a wound that is, where you're bleeding profusely, because that is an area that has been super how do you say that, you know, with there is a lot of blood circulating around that area because it is the vital connection between you and the child. So anyway, apparently I had been for that whole time bleeding into my uterus, and then when the nurse pressed on my tummy, it came gushing out, and I had lost an insane amount of blood. So at some point I came back. I was absolutely exhausted, and the doctor came. I was alone when I came back. And then at some point the nurse came and looked at me, and she said, Mrs. Goldberg, this was close. This was a close call. And everybody was so relieved to see me. Even other doctors and people who had attended my surgery came then to visit me at my bedside and to check how I was doing, because it had talked around what had happened. And my husband got let in to be with me at some point, and then he told me what had happened. And also the doctor who had told me that they might have to take me into the operating room again to remove my uterus, he came in, and at that point I really didn't know, did they remove the uterus in the end or not. So he told me they didn't have to do it. I responded at some point then to the medication, but it was a very close call. My uterus just had been overstretched, it was just too much, you know. It was my second twin pregnancy, and even though I was, as I told you, not super big, it was just too much for my body to take. Also because I had already a couple of C-section scars in that uterine tissue. So anyway, it was really scary. So he told me like 2-3 minutes more and I would have been probably beyond saving. And when that hit me, when this realization hit me, that in the moment where my husband was standing outside telling everybody that we have just had a baby boy and a baby girl, that I just silently slipped away, almost. You know, I went into this tunnel and I know that it was not scary. And that was the thing, you know, I knew that I had just a baby, 2 babies, a baby boy and a baby girl. And I knew that I have 4 more kids at home, and that I'm leaving my husband behind alone. But still, I had no worries. That is so insane to me, because it goes so against nature of being a mother, you know, and of being nurturing and of being all of this, what women instinctively are. Even if you're not a mother, or if you're a mother, you are a nurturer. That is in most of us, that it's just in us, you know. So that was really besides being scared of this whole story, that was the insane thing for me in the aftermath, to think about it, that I was not scared of dying, of slipping away into this tunnel. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't want to judge that as there is no light at the end of my tunnel. It was just a very peaceful, quiet place, which I loved. It was amazing, and I needed that because I was so exhausted, you know. And I had no worries and no thoughts about my husband and about my children. I was just me in that place, and that is so strange to me now that I'm back for quite some time to think about that I was actually, it feels like a super selfish thing, but it's not. It's just that you are there with your creator in that moment of the decision, are you going or are you coming, or are you going back, or you know what I mean? So it's just this in-between place where there is nothing else than that. Yeah, so that was that. And then after a couple hours, they let me go to the maternity ward, and I was not allowed to have my kids for another half a day at least. And they said I could visit my children, but I could not have them with me in my room because I was still too weak. So of course, Leorah needs to get up and take a shower and get dressed and then walk to the maternity ward. And I was standing there seeing my babies in those little baby beds, and one of them, Golani, still had an oxygen tent over him because he had a bit of trouble breathing. And yeah, so it was really hard to take all of this. And then I just remembered that I felt like I'm getting really hot and I cannot take it. I have to get out of there. So of course, feeling the guilt that what kind of bad mother am I that I cannot be there with my kids, because us mothers, we never give ourselves a break, right? So I went out there, and then I collapsed on the hallway of the maternity ward. I just collapsed because I was super exhausted, loss of blood and all of that. So they wheeled me back to my bed, they put me back into my bed, and then they didn't let me get up for quite some time. Yeah, sometimes Leorah has to be forced to be still. Anyway, yeah, so that is really that part that I still wanted to add to part 5 of my infertility series. And so that was part 5.5, and next time hopefully we'll go into my part 6, which is the only child that we conceived naturally, and which is a super miracle by itself, as you will see next time. I hope that the next series is not gonna be you know, so long from now. It's just that now with all of the holidays, I got sidetracked with all of the holiday videos that I did, that the whole infertility series got pushed off a little bit. But anyway, if you're up for watching more in the series and you have not seen all of those videos that have been previously in this series, then there is a playlist on my channel that you can check out with all of the videos that I've done in this, you know, in this series. So that was that for today. I hope that was nice. Yeah, it was a story time. It's part of my life. I don't think there is anything to judge there. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it, you know, it is just what it is, because this is how life goes. There are so many things in life that we cannot explain why they happen this way or that way. And it's just, you know, the only thing, and I've told you already a similar thing in previous videos, the only thing where I can see that all of this makes sense is me sharing it. So that's what I'm doing. So I hope you have been blessed by this. Let me know in the comment section what you think. If you're one of these people who really needed to hear that, you can also contact me privately, PM me on my social media if you need to talk about it, or if you need some input or whatever, you know. I'm here. Sometimes it takes a little bit till I get back to you, but I will, if you tag me or if you write to me personally, I will definitely answer you, okay? All right, so that is that. And if you're new here to my channel, please subscribe. I would really love that. And it's just really a place for me, this, besides being my therapy group, and my personal playground when it comes to makeup, it's just a very healthy place for me to recover from all kinds of things. So that is maybe also a place that it can be for you. So yeah, if you want, then please join, and I'll see you here next time for my next video, which is going to be super soon. And up until then, go ahead and sparkle, enjoy life, and be aware that you're alive. And hugs and kisses. See you next time. Bye.